Sometimes there's no way to sugarcoat something. You have to be told exactly how it is.
Hi guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. And if you're watching, hi, I'm Yash. I'm your host. And I'm a content creator here at Vertex. And much like a lot of people who might be tuning in and listening, I am also a student. I'm learning. And on this podcast, I'll be talking to a lot of people who are in the industry, experts, and learning alongside everyone else. And I hope everyone has a great time on this podcast. And for today's episode, we have Giancarlo joining us. He is a 3D artist at Pixel Mafia. Giancarlo, thanks for joining us. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. We've known each other for a while. It's been like
Yeah,
what, like a year since we've started class together, and it's an honor to go over all of this and the experiences we've learned together.
I just realized that much time has passed because when you said a year, I was like, is that a year already? That's the year went by in a flash. I was like, oh.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I know.
it's so for folks tuning in, Giancarlo and myself, we have been classmates. We did the game art program at Vertex together. So from my personal experience, he's a fantastic artist. Like all the
Thank
work
you.
I've seen he's put out so far, just straight up breathtaking, just very impressive.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with what drew you to like 3D art and like why did you decide to pursue your career in 3D?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I growing up, I loved animation. I loved everything 3D, but I thought I'd end up doing something mundane, an accountant, an engineer or something. And I went through life going through the motions. I graduated with computer science, a bachelor's degree in computer science, but I never felt fulfilled. I mean, I could do the job perfectly fine, but there was just something there that told me I want to do something more, and this wasn't it. So surprisingly enough, I didn't become a 3D artist yet. I went into 3D animation. So I studied 3D animation, did another diploma course for a year after graduating college for 3D animation, and worked in freelance for around four years. And it was around when the pandemic hit, when a job offer came to me, and the guy said, "Hey, do you want to work as a 3D artist?" And I told her, "Hey, I do not know anything about being a 3D modeler or anything." But my gut told me, you know what, just take it. It's a job, it's good money. And it started from there. The gears started turning, and I ended up falling in love with being a 3D artist even more than I did with animation. And it just cascaded from there, just moving from job to job until I went to Vertex and ended up here.
That's very interesting. That's quite the journey. And I would say that when you mentioned that when the job for a 3D artist came along and you were like, I've not done a lot of 3D art. I've been primarily an animator and you just went
Yeah.
for it. But it's also, to me, a good example of the fact that you don't need to prepare because oftentimes a lot of us we just spend so much time thinking, oh, I will prepare first. I'll make sure I'm 100% ready and then go do it. And you
Mhm.
sometimes realize you'll never be 100% ready. You just
Mhm.
sometimes when you dive in head first, you just learn so much more faster because you're actually doing it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
To quote one of my favorite movies, Spider-Verse, how do you know when you're ready? You don't. It's just a leap of
exactly.
faith. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you're scared, sometimes when your body's telling you, don't do it, I'm scared. Sometimes that's life telling you, you gotta take it. This is the only chance you get. Take it.
Speaking of just becoming a 3D artist, jumping in and doing things just, getting to it head on. You were studying at Vertex School before you landed your job at Pixel Mafia.
Yeah, that's right.
So, what was the transition like for you when you finally landed a job? Was there like a moment where you're like, wow, I actually did it, given how the industry is
Yeah.
at the moment?
Yeah, honestly, it didn't hit up until I landed the job. It wasn't right when I got to the job. It was just like, okay, yeah, I'm hired, I'm nervous and everything. But it hit that feeling where you get in your head like this is it. This is the big leagues. When I sat down in a conference call with our clients, I'm currently working on AAA game. Of course, NDA can't talk about that. But when I got introduced to all of them, all of the big guys that were heading the project, and one by one we introduced our names and who we were, that it hit me. I was sitting in the conference call, the clients were talking, and I was like, oh, I'm here. This is it. Like the childhood games that I played, the people who stood here started a project just like this, and I'm here right now. And it kind of sunk in and made me realize, I'm lucky to be here, lucky to have met the people that I met, like you guys in the class, Stefan. Lena, everyone that taught me, and that's when I just began appreciating my opportunity, like the whole thing.
For me, I think that that sort of a moment, well, I wish to at some point experience it as a game artist, but for me that moment has come also in terms of this podcast because
Mm.
for me personally, I like to do a lot of different creative things. Podcasting was one of the things I really wanted to try. So when I finally got the opportunity to sit down, talk to amazing artists like yourself and like a lot of other people in the industry, like when I did when I recorded the very first episode, I was like, I'm here. I'm sitting, I got the camera, microphone, everything ready. I'm
Mhm.
actually getting this done. Feeling like it's come a full circle. Like you grow up aspiring to do a lot of things, and then when you actually sit down to do it, you're like, wow, it's come a full circle from watching it happen to actually executing it yourself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's, I think for me, number one, that's something anyone can do. I think we tend to stop ourselves from doing it because we talk ourselves out of our own ideas. Like, oh, I'd love to do this, but oh, I don't have the time, or oh, I don't think I'm good enough. We all have that capability. We all can do that. We just have to, I mean, it's kind of corny to say believe in ourselves, but you need that drive and that confidence to be able to pursue stuff like that. You can't be not confident in yourself and succeed. People who have succeeded in life have a sense of direction, of knowing that's what they want to do. And sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it. Like same as you, Yash. Like even until now, I still don't believe I'm that good, but I'm trying. I'm getting better, and hopefully I can call myself, a really good artist in the future.
Sometimes it's when we talk ourselves out of it, it's also got to do with the fact that it's not necessarily as a lot of judgment from others as much it is us judging ourselves a
Ourselves.
lot. And speaking of, just judging ourselves, sometimes talking ourselves out of like opportunities or
Mm.
just, getting things started. What is the biggest mindset shift and skill upgrades that you feel you had to make when you went from student making a portfolio to professional in a studio doing AAA work?
That I think for me was one of the trickiest parts because the thing they make you do in a studio, I mean, personal work, it's all just creativity. You make ideas, you just lump them together. One thing I realized in a studio was everything is documented, everything is laid out like meticulously, and you just have to follow those footsteps because if you don't, the plan breaks apart. I think the biggest mindset shift for me wasn't just, when making a project, making stuff up as you go. And that's fun for creativity wise. That's great just seeing how everything is. But if you want to make a good project, everything has to be laid out at the very least or planned out. You need to have a structure. You don't need exactly to know where what you want to do, but you need to have a structure to get from point A to point B to point C. And I think that was the biggest thing I learned in the studio, just the overall organization of everything. It's amazing, honestly.
And do you feel as a like when you're a student just creating your portfolio, you as an artist, you'd have so much of creative freedom because it's your
Yeah.
project, your ideas, your concept. You can
Yeah.
make it however you want it to be. When you're in a
Yeah.
studio, obviously there are things you need to follow. There's a protocol you need to follow. You need
Mhm.
to create things which are in sync with the end goal that people are trying to
Yeah.
achieve. So do
Yeah.
you feel as an artist that when you're in a studio, you have to maintain like a balance between your own personal artistic freedom, but also respecting that there's an entire team working towards a specific goal. So you cannot just be like, I'll do it my way. You have to sometimes adjust.
Yeah, that's actually pretty difficult when working with a team. Sometimes you have to overwrite your creative senses. If you think something looks good, but it doesn't work for the art style the project's going for, you can't do it. I mean, there's some times where you have to put the needs of the whole to yourself because you're a part of a giant machine working together, you know? And that was definitely like not painful, but it was something I learned. Okay, as an artist, I think this would have been great, but I know as an artist in this team working for this project, I can't do that, or that shouldn't be something that's added here based on design documents or the art style. It's just learning to not take stuff personally. A job is a job at the end of the day, and you just have to get what you're asked for out and given to the client.
Yes. So, speaking of like, not taking things personally and just
Mm,
understanding that you need to work in sync with the team, otherwise
mm,
it's going to go all haywire.
yeah.
Um, Was there a specific, sometimes as artists we get feedback.
Mm,
Sometimes it varies from person to person who is giving us the feedback. Sometimes people can be, I would say, I would call it as tough love. Like they'll be a bit
mm,
harsh, but they're saying it for your own good. And there are times where people will find a much tactful, much more nicer way to give you a feedback. So, was
yeah.
there a specific piece of feedback or like a specific critique that you got early on that really, stuck with you, that changed the way you work, or like something that made you rethink your approach to how you create art?
Yeah. I think I'll never forget it actually. This one feedback I got from an art test. I thought the thing I made was great. It looked really nice. It was a metallic, reflective looking vase thing. I thought it looked nice. And when I submitted it, I was thankful enough that the leaders who reviewed my work, that art test, actually came back and gave me feedback and told me, okay, this is what you have to work on. And at first I took it personally because his wording was kind of harsh. He said, like we expect a different level when you're in AAA, we expect you to be better. We expect you to do a lot more than this. And at first I took that personally, but then I reread those notes and yes, as you said, tough love. Sometimes there's no way to sugarcoat something. You have to be told exactly how it is, and it's up to you to react to that. Will you get mad at it and be like, "Hey, I didn't really like that. I'm gonna take that personally," or are you gonna be, you know what? Yeah, I'll take your bet. I'm gonna get better and I'm gonna show you that I can be better. And that was when I combed through all of that feedback and I realized, oh my God, the feedback changed fundamentally how I viewed my asset in Painter. Just number one, checking your roughness maps, checking your albedo or base color maps and metallic maps individually. Because oftentimes as artists, right, we tend to look at the Painter the asset in Painter in the material view and we think, whoa, that's really nice. But we fail to look at the individual maps themselves and see that there's a lot more detail that was missed just because we saw things as a whole instead of seeing them individually. I think number one, that was the biggest change in perspective for me, was just looking at things individually, by map and not as a whole.
That's very interesting. As a lot of people say, the devil is in the details. Like there are so many
Exactly.
times. Since we are again talking about feedback, a lot of
Mm.
times we may get feedback from mentors, we get feedback from art tests. Getting a feedback from artists is genuinely a good thing. I
Yeah.
think studios and companies that take time to give that feedback, I think they're doing everyone a very big favor by
Yeah.
actually breaking it down. If you could go back to your time as a student, what would you do differently to prepare for the reality of like studio work?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, number one, the with the what we discussed earlier, definitely being more organized, naming things and pre-planning. Definitely planning something out, even just having a white box or just blocking out the scene. It really does help. You get a feel for how the project looks, how everything's gonna be laid out in the scene, and just fundamentals, basic fundamentals. A lot of people think that, all those trending fancy artworks you see that seniors do in ArtStation, that's what gets you a job. It's not. The big shift for me was realizing a lot of what you're gonna do in a job, especially as an artist, is very simple assets. Extremely simple, but how you perform within the system is different. And not everyone can perform that way. Like hitting deadlines consistently, receiving assets, working on them, communicating with your team and your lead and your project manager, and making sure everything's running smoothly. That's a difficult thing to do, honestly. And I learned that on the job just few months. It was a big shock to me. It wasn't all just art based. It wasn't all just creatively driven and just, yeah, let's just do this. Everything's laid out.
To me, it is slightly a small surprise that in a studio, it's more of like you'll get more simpler props. I'm not saying that that makes studio work easier, but it's just that there are times where some of us have this assumption that when you're going to work in a studio, it's going to be all this complicated work, and at least that's how I had that's the thought I had. I can't speak for the other artists out there,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
I don't blame you. I thought the same thing. And like just being given simple stuff to work on, bottles, even a simple barrel, even a plank of wood, it makes you go like, wow, I took the art test for this. But honestly, people tend to think that, hey, oh, that should be that's easy. Like I could do that. Yeah, but can you work within that system? And yeah, it goes back to what you said, Yashim, with fundamentals, just the foundation of being an artist and working with that system is the most important thing when working in AAA.
And working in AAA is obviously like the end goal for quite a few aspiring
Yeah.
people who just genuinely love art
Yeah.
so much that they are like, I have to be here. And
Yeah.
getting that first job in the industry is usually like the hardest step, which is like breaking in.
Mm.
When you applied for a job at Pixel Mafia, like what aspects of your portfolio do you think stood out to them that made them take you on board?
This was one thing I was taught by the mentors too, is just focus on giving your best, is you put your best foot forward. If you have 8 or 10 different entries in your art station, but they're not the best that you can give to your client to any company, remove it. One very good work is better than 10 mediocre ones. And going back to Vertex, I got my job in Pixel Mafia because of my work in Vertex. Um, I think it was just the reality is most people that want to hire you, they only get maybe one glance in your resume and then they look at your art station. They don't want to spend more than 10 minutes checking your work because they have to check other people's works. Your work has to stand out. And I think the best way to do it would be honestly if you're working in props and environments, a good environment project. Something that can just show off both your work on props, your work on modular assets, and effects. I think personally that is the best way to get your foot there and just to show off your whole repertoire as an artist, would be to do a full environment project.
So it could basically quality over quantity. And
Pretty much. Yep.
one piece that could where you not only show the end result of all the hard work, but you show like a,
The
do you think
breakdown.
showing a breakdown, like this is how
Yes.
I did the materials, this is the modular kit I made, this is how I did the effects, giving a
Yeah.
very big breakdown would, it just shows to the people looking at your portfolio that, hey, I know how to do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're
It doesn't
showing,
just help. It doesn't just help. It's integral to how people who want to hire you see your mindset when making your scene. Mainly because, example, you can give the best environment you can, but if the person who wants to hire you doesn't see your thought process, they don't see how you built this from scratch. They're not gonna understand your mindset, you know? And I think for me, at the very least, having a breakdown is very important if not necessary, if you want to be hired. Just like with 2D, showing off the fundamentals, showing off the breakdown of everything you did, it helps greatly. And I think it puts you above the rest in terms of just getting hired. People in the industry, they do not want to lose things. They want to know where everything is. And
yeah.
if you're not clean, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, this guy's good, but like he might miss files, like stuff might get lost
Yeah.
if he's handling them, you know?
This is like an essential thing that I learned even on the first episode. So on the first
Mm.
episode, I had Stefan on, and
Oh, nice.
he was also saying that for the time he was working in Ubisoft and like for the time he spent in the AAA industry, he was like, when you're doing all these materials, you have to have your graphs, your notes all neat, clean, organized, because let's say you're passing this work on to someone else. When they
Yeah,
open up your file, they should be able to look at it and be like, I know what to do with this. It's all neat,
yeah,
organized. I can see what is missing. I can see what I need to add.
yeah,
If you offer up a jumbled mess, you're slowing the team down potentially.
yeah, yeah.
And beyond like, technical skills and as
Mm.
an artist, a lot of the time, a lot of creative folks, there is this stereotype I've come across that a lot of artists, creative people can be very introverted, like do not like they may not necessarily go out there and be like, hi, I'm here. Like, how important is things like, personal branding, soft skills, communication skills, like, networking, maybe having a social
Yeah,
media presence, and, having a unique artistic style important, putting aside all the technical skills you need for the job.
yeah. I'll go out on a limb here, and this might be a bit controversial, but I'd say that that's 50% of being an artist. I know some people might be surprised and say 50%, but art is pretty much what we do. Honestly, to get anywhere, to do anything, to meet anyone, you need to network. You need to develop soft skills. You need to find, I know it may be uncomfortable for some people, but you gotta go out there and make yourself known. No one's gonna hire you if no one knows who you are. And sometimes it's all about just putting yourself out there, even if you're scared, and meeting new people. You know, you don't have to be friends with them, but you have to get to know people. You have to exchange ideas. And number one example with Vertex School, I met a lot of great people, you, Antonella included, Amanda, everyone in the project was so nice, so giving with advice. And I found that because of that, like it kind of allowed me to reach out to different aspects of the industry I couldn't reach out to before. Like I know Stefan, I know Lena, I know you guys because of that. And that puts me a leg up above people who don't, who are probably very good, to be honest. They're probably very good, but they just don't know the right people to get hired. And I confidently say 50% of it is art. The other 50% is the soft skills, the networking, going out. You don't even have to meet people in real life. Just talk online, share your stuff, share your experiences. Don't be afraid. That's all I can really say. Don't be afraid and just put yourself out there.
I agree 100%. Given that for me, I didn't necessarily start with the art background, I started with
Yeah.
journalism. And
Yeah.
journalism, like everyone knows, like first thing you might think of as a TV reporter on television in front of a camera with a microphone.
Mhm.
And while I did not do that, I did learn a lot of communication. And it was after journalism where I was put in a situation where, I have to go talk, can't be a journalist if you can't talk. I
Yeah.
I slowly started realizing, one, it is okay to be seen. Like oftentimes there's so much of it, a lot of us can be very inhibited by the idea of putting ourselves out there because we are like concerned about judgment from others, judgment, perhaps the judgment we place on ourselves, and just, being like, I can't, I'm too shy. And I feel like anyone can actually develop, because art, when you think about art, is a communication style. You're visually
Yeah.
communicating. So you're already halfway there. If you can create something to visually communicate without words, that's way harder than communicating with words, I would say. For the folks listening, if you can just take a chance, just genuinely, people are not as horrible. And if you have had a past where people may have not been nice to you, give it another chance. Because for me, when I came to Vertex, like Giancarlo said, everyone was so amazing, just so kind, so accepting, and like I felt so included in every single class. I felt like I was heard, I was given advice, I was helped out. Like it may take a few attempts, but it will work out. And just being able to communicate, being able to speak, not only helps you build a huge network. When you land a job, it helps you navigate through the job, because
Yeah.
when you're at a workplace, you have to communicate with colleagues, you have to speak to your boss, your manager, someone else. And it helps you present yourself in a really good way. It really opens up a lot of opportunities. Could you walk us through an average day in Pixel Mafia? Like, what do you do? Like, if take us through a typical day of your work.
Yeah. Well, waking up, thankfully enough, the company has a shuttle service, so, traveling there isn't on me, isn't a financial burden. I'm really grateful for the company for that. So I get picked up around 9 a.m., go to work. We have our morning scrum at around 10 a.m. For those listening who don't know what a scrum is, that's kind of like daily updates where the project manager and everyone aligned together with the tasks that we did the previous day and the tasks we're going to be doing today. People tend to overlook that, but that is one of the most essential steps in creating a good cohesive team is communication. Especially when you have a team of more than 10 people, a lot of things can go wrong. Things can be mixed up. Oh, I thought I was working on this one, but it was actually this one. The names were so similar. Or, oh, the deadline was today. I thought it was tomorrow. A lot of those things can go wrong. And the morning scrum usually keeps our heads on a swivel, makes us attentive and alert to everything we have to do. After that, we go back to work. It's just work straight until 12 p.m. where we have our lunch. We go and relax for a bit, back to work after an hour. From that, we just go straight to work up until 7 p.m. But a lot of that is winding down and making sure we submit our updates to our manager to make sure they know what we did today, how long that took, and what we're going to be doing for tomorrow, or what we plan to do for tomorrow if we don't finish the current work we have. And we head back home. We take the shuttle back home, and that's pretty much how the day goes. That's just a repeat.
So, in terms of like working with a team, how does your feedback loop function? Like, is it if someone has to give you a feedback and if you have to give a feedback to someone, how does that
Right.
loop function? And
Right.
is there like a particular way you go about communicating feedback?
Yeah. Well, generally feedback's just given by the lead. Other artists, what our lead does is he encourages us to give feedback to everyone else, but at the end of the day, our main lead artist has the final say. We can help each other out. I can just, tap on my seatmate and I go, "Hey, could I get some help? Can you take a look at this asset I made? Do you think it's good?" Or my seatmate can give me feedback and say, "Oh, hey, that's kind of a bit too dark. Maybe you should do this or do that." I think number one, instead of relying on our leads, I think it's always good to get a second look from our teammates because one, it helps all of us develop that creative eye to see and to spot things that are maybe wrong, and also for us to understand and take feedback constructively, not take it personally, and understand that that is part of the job. Sometimes, when you spend so long on an asset, you tend to get attached to it. Regardless of how you feel, even if it's just an asset to you, you think, "Oh man, I worked 2 days for this, and this guy next to me says it's not good enough." That is how it is. Sometimes you like we said earlier, you gotta remove your personal bias and think to yourself, yeah, maybe it should be this way or that way. Or if you want, you can consult your actual lead for it. At the end of the day, it's more of just helping people get better and accepting that you also can be better. And I think it's a good feedback loop is helping each other out, but at the end, having giving our lead the final say. He says whether it's good or not.
That's very interesting. So, also, I would say just instead of directly approaching the lead, having one of your colleagues like take a look at
Yeah.
your work. I think that, like you said, not only develops a creative eye, I would say also speeds up the process because
Yeah.
I reckon your teammate is more readily available compared to your lead who
Yeah.
might be working on other projects. Not that your teammates are not, it's just that they're like right next to you, so you can
Yeah.
easily reach out much faster. And working through like different projects, like be it personal or be it projects you may have worked on, while
Mm.
you're at Pixel Mafia, what's been the most rewarding project or task that you have worked on so far, and why does that particular thing stand out to you the most?
Definitely for me at least. Just the most rewarding thing is seeing my work in engine. Just looking at it, I mean, it might blend in to the whole scene, but you know that that thing there, really far away, that's something you made, and it's immortalized in the game, you know? No one will probably know you made it. No one's probably gonna care, but you do. And that was special for me. It's not a hero asset or anything. It's not something people are gonna gawk at, but it was a reminder for me that I made it. I'm here. Something I made, something I worked on is gonna be in this game that people are gonna enjoy. And whether they realize it or not, a part of my time, a part of my blood, sweat, and tears went into that. And it's amazing, honestly. Just seeing it come to life from just the basic shapes that you see from the initial stages up until the game ready look. It's why we do it. It's why we do this job. It's why we go through all of this.
Feel it's also like a beginning to something good because
Yeah.
you're going to grow as an artist, and maybe there will come a point in time when you're working on a project and you
Yeah.
get to design like this cool hero prop, and then
Yeah.
when that goes in the game you'll be like, ah yes, from making like maybe a small barrel that was in a corner of the first game to now maybe designing the sword that everyone's going crazy about. I made that sword. Like, I feel
Yeah.
that whole journey is just so meaningful and it's just fulfilling in a way, if you know what I mean.
It is. It is. I think most people also get a bit too excited thinking, I want to make something that's gonna make everyone surprised. I want to make something that people are gonna gawk at. But honestly, same thing with life. Sometimes you gotta learn to walk before you can run. Don't be surprised if you land your first job. If you're doing something mundane, something simple. These things that our leads make us do, these develop habits, good habits and good tendencies for us as younger artists, or rather even artists that are a bit older switching from another industry. Just gonna add that in there, but I'm doesn't look like it, but I'm 30, and I know a lot of people think to themselves, "Oh man, I'm like 35, I'm like 29. I think it's too late for me to switch industries." It's never too late. It never is, and you can always get through that, and you can always get good at being a 3D artist and still achieve this dream to see your work in a game. I think that's the one advantage we have in the industry is it's not as punishing towards people who are a bit older because a lot of this stuff isn't physical based. And I know a lot of very talented artists who are much older than me in their 40s or in their 50s who are still rocking it, still doing great stuff. So, yeah, don't give up, guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's always like I feel if you look for it, you'll always find examples, people who are defying like things like age and just actually, making their dreams happen. And one thing that I would say really is important is to understand you're not in a race with
Mm.
everyone else. There are so many times when we see like a lot of young people in their like 20s just doing fantastic work. They're just like they're making a lot of money, they're creating like amazing things, and sometimes we can look at them and we can be like, why am I not there? What did
Yeah.
I do wrong? And the thing is, you didn't do anything wrong. It's You're not in a race with them, because that person, if you don't know anything about them, it's easy to be like, oh, that person's lucky. Maybe they like we need to consider that one completely different, that person has a different background in terms of like the family they grew up in, the finances they grew up in, what up sort of upbringing they've had, what situations they've been through. All of it is different. And when you're like, all of us have like a unique path, so it is okay to not be a fantastic artist. It's okay if you're not Pablo Picasso in your 20s. It's fine. Like you can
Yes.
still work your way up and you can make something really fantastic as you grow older. A lot of the conversation has, we have mentioned a lot of times, believing in yourself.
Hmm.
There are a lot of artists who face imposter syndrome, that feeling of I'm not good enough or my art is just not good enough. Have you experienced something of imposter syndrome or that sort of a feeling? And if you have, like, how did you overcome that?
Yeah. Honestly, imposter syndrome you get, it'll probably never go away like fully. Somehow in the back of your mind, you'll always think, "Oh my God, like I'm in over my head. I think I'm not good enough, and this project's way too big for me." Sometimes you gotta just take a moment, take a deep breath, and think to yourself, there are thousands of artists that, yeah, they're probably better than you in every aspect. But number one, you aren't them. They aren't you. You're you. And despite everything, and despite anything that's ever happened to you, you're in this position now. You're learning something. You're good at what you're doing. It's kind of difficult to think that way because with the advent of social media, of ArtStation, seeing the trending page and looking at all these amazing works by senior artists and by younger people who figured out 3D, people think to themselves, like you said, I can't even approach that level of quality. And I'll be honest, even being where I am now, I still look at people in ArtStation and think to myself, oh my God, I can't even hope to reach that quality. But I don't need to. You just have to think, same as you said, Yash, it's not a race. It's not a marathon. We're all fellow artists trying to help each other. You shouldn't be jealous at someone for being good. You think to yourself, I wonder what he did to be good. I want to do that too. I want to be that too. And the moment you think to yourself, the moment you change that mindset where you think, I want to be just as good as him instead of, man, why can't I be as good as him? That's the time something will click in you. And that's the time you'll begin enjoying 3D again. Because a lot of people, I think you noticed, the 3D burnout starts there. When people compare themselves too much, they make work trying to compare themselves to artists. They forget the joy in doing exactly what they wanted to do in the first place, which was make things that they want to do, that they want to make, that they want to show off to people. And that's lost when you try to chase someone's shadow instead of making your own.
I agree. The mindset shifts really make a lot of difference. Speaking of mindset shifts, like for the folks who are listening in, what's The one piece of advice you would give that you wish you would have known earlier when you were just starting out.
This advice basically I'm going to be giving, this is something honestly I wish I could have drilled to me. I could have just like shouted to me in the past, like, hey, oh my God, like please do this. This will save you years upon years. Start simple. I know a lot of people go like, you want us to attract employers with big environments, but you want us to start simple. What do you mean? I mean, do what you can do. I know as a starting artist, you see all of these environments and you think to yourself, I want to do something like that. But a lot of these good environments by senior artists, they're good for a reason. These guys have years upon years of practice, repetition, and experience under their belt. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. You shouldn't feel bad about being new. If you want to learn something, you have to start from the absolute fundamental and basics. Like you said, Yash, the first thing you ever made was an axe. The first thing I ever made was a gun. And that's not something a first timer should make. A gun, a firearm. It was an AR-15, fully modular. I've copied tutorials, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I was stuck in that rut for I think a year or two, copying other people's tutorials, thinking to myself, why am I not getting better? I'm trying to make these complicated pieces of art, but I'm not getting better. What's wrong with me? Down the line, a lot in the future, I look back and thought to myself, I wasn't getting better because I wasn't making my art. I was copying it. I was skipping my skill level and trying to act as if I was better than I actually was. Doing something I had no chance in making look good because I was just starting out. And it was that instance, that moment when I realized, okay, maybe I should start something simple. Maybe a drawer, maybe a cabinet, maybe a spoon and fork, maybe just a plate set. That was when I started improving. Not because I gave up on guns and just started doing simple stuff, but because all the stuff I made was mine. I wasn't copying anyone. I was using artists' intuition and thinking, okay, how am I gonna make this drawer? And I told myself I wouldn't copy any tutorials. I'd make it up as I go. I'd follow references, real life references, but I would avoid trying to copy topology and edge flow from other artists. I'd make it myself. And I learned so much in just under a year, how to bevel, proper edge flow, proper topology. And it wasn't from tutorials. It was just me realizing the more effective way in doing something. Because naturally, as humans, we tend to develop a better way of doing something when we find it difficult. And it just so happened that these techniques were something that existed in games already. I thought I just made them up, and I realized, oh, so this is something people actually do in games. That's pretty cool. I thought I made that up, but I inadvertently learned something by not learning anything at all from other people. Sometimes it takes you learning from yourself to learn the most. Sometimes you just gotta take a step back, stop looking at all those YouTube tutorials, make something simple and figure it out yourself.
It just contributes to like building, like we were talking about before, like a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Because the first three things that I ever made, the first was an axe. The second was like a very simple park bench, that and a screw. Those were the first three props I'd ever made. And honestly, I remember my teacher at the time. His teaching style was every time I was going to make a mistake, he never told me. He never stopped me. He allowed me to make the mistake.
He just
And
watched you.
then, yeah, he'd just sit there and watch and I'd mess it up and I'd be like, what happened? And then he'd be like, you did that. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, do you not feel you're going to remember this now because you made a mistake? It's burned in the
Yeah.
back of your mind now.
Mistakes are things we never forget. Our mentors, our teachers can tell us what not to do all day, but we're not gonna take that seriously because those aren't our mistakes. Those are theirs.
To folks listening in, I highly encourage you, make mistakes. You mess up, that's actually a really good thing. You know why?
Keep
Because you're
going.
going to remember it and you're going to be
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not going to do that again.
Even for games, the foundation of games is failure. Getting better through failure. Dark Souls games, for example, people get better because they die, because
Yeah.
they figure out, oh, I shouldn't do that. I should do this next. And we slowly get better until we win. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, guys.
Yeah. Speaking of Dark Souls, do you like that game? Are you a gamer? What's
Oh,
your favorite game?
yeah, I mean, that's probably super expected. I am a big gamer. Currently playing Space Marine 2 and Battle Realms. I don't know if older people probably get that, but Battle Realms, a very old early 2000s game, an RTS game, super underrated beyond all reason. We also gotta support the AA and indie industry guys. Those guys do good work, and there are some really good games under the radar. Give every game you see a chance, not just AAA.
I will say I am not a hardcore gamer.
Mm.
It's only been recently where as a child, I used to play a lot of games, and then
Yeah.
there's a phase where I just stopped altogether. And now I'm back into, so for me, I think the most recent game I'm playing is before people tell me that I'm like too late to the party. I know, okay, I'm playing World of Warcraft. I know I'm late by 2 decades. I am fully
It's a
aware of
great
that
game.
before people go like, Yash, too late is like an understatement. I know. I
Yeah.
get it.
I mean, even then, just to say this, like people who aren't gamers don't feel bad. Like my current lead in my team, he isn't a gamer. He enjoys making games, but he doesn't play games. Don't think yourself, oh, I'm not a gamer. I don't enjoy playing games. I guess being in the game industry isn't for me. No, that could not be further from the truth. A lot of what brings people into this industry is their love for games, yes, but some people just want to make worlds. Some people want to be the author to the games that people want to play, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Don't feel bad just because you can't understand how gamers feel, or just because you haven't played a specific game. Get in the industry if you have doubts about it just because you haven't played a game.
That's actually very true, because I would say even one of our mentors, actually, she, from what I understand, was not a hardcore gamer. When she was telling us about herself, she used to work in I think customer service, was not necessarily a very hardcore gamer, and then she transitioned and now she works in the AAA industry. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So that has been a fantastic conversation. It's been super insightful, super fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Thank you, Giancarlo, for
Yeah.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.